punishment. It is an opportunity to rebalance yourself. And as soon as you make a decision to realize that you may have been out of balance in the way that you would prefer to be, and you make a decision to balance yourself, there is no karma. It is simply the recognition that you are out of balance, and it is the decision to rebalance yourself that erases anything that has to do with that concept.
Fantastic. Thank you. Do you have any information, clarification, or guidance to share on what we call walk-in souls or multiple souls that inhabit the same body at different times?
It is not a different soul. It is more of the same soul, which of course will change the personality, which is why it makes people on your planet think it's a different soul, because now they're dealing with a very different person. But it's the same soul in a more expanded presentation.
Okay, fantastic. Is there any guidance you can give on to help those people kind of go through that transition phase?
Follow the formula.
Okay. Is there any aspect of your teachings that you feel has been misunderstood by many receiving it?
Several. Where would you like me to start?
Wherever you feel.
One of the ones that is the most prominent is a lack of understanding of the precision required to really allow the formula to work with them, because many people will lock onto the idea and get very excited about acting on their passion, and they will completely ignore or dismiss or forget about the idea of all the other aspects, or have a very limited understanding of the other aspects, such as no assumption, no insistence, to the best you can, taking it as far as you can till you can take it no further, and the idea of remaining in a positive state no matter what happens. So many people will click onto the first one and go a little bit soft on the remaining attributes of the formula.
Oh, I love that. Thank you very much.
Yes.
What is the most powerful action we can take right now to accept the higher frequencies that many of us have been feeling inundating us over the past number of months?
Any action in the direction of your true passion. Because remember, the language of physical reality is physical action, not words. So if you are passionate or excited about something, even just a little bit more than any other choice, taking a physical action to the best you can in that direction is the next step on your path. Remember, your higher mind is communicating with you in energy, and your body translates that energy as passion. So when you take action on it, you're actually answering the higher mind, saying, yes, I heard you. And therefore it can send you more opportunities to take action on your passion. If you're not acting on your passion, it's not going to send you more opportunities. Why should it when you're not even acting on what it's already sent you? That's the most powerful thing you can do, is pay attention to what you are passionate about. Take whatever action you can take without assuming that the form in which the passion came is the thing that actually has to come to fruition, because you have no idea why it actually came in the form that it did. Just do your best to see if that's the form that needs to come to fruition, but never assume or insist that it must, because sometimes your passion will come to you in a form that will just get you to move so that you can wind up and be where you need to be, so that what really needs to happen can happen more easily.
Fantastic, thank you. Is there any action hybrid children would benefit from their biological relatives taking?
Well, certainly by communicating with them as best you can, whether in physical reality or in the dream state, loving them, sending them that kind of energy. And again, as always, following the formula, because that will allow your life to unfold in an automatic way that will more likely increase the probability of interacting with them in the future.
Thank you.
And remember, when you act on your passion, you raise your frequency and you make yourself a better receiver of higher frequency information and energy. And therefore, by acting on your passion, you become a better antenna to know when they are actually sending you information, either through your consciousness or through synchronicity. You'll recognize when it's a message from them.
Is there anything you feel would be helpful to share with me personally that I've not already asked about?
Yes. Don't ask if you're missing something.
Thank you. Yes, that's very true to what I've been going through.
Anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you so much.
All right. We thank you for your interaction. Good day.
Part 2 of my question is about the parallel realities, and I'm a little confused. I understand that every time we change our entire past and future. But when people make predictions, or like when you say that in 2030 we'll have open contact, or whatever the exact date was, I don't remember, how can there be a mass consensus or a collective conscious or collective reality if we're changing all the time? Like, who is that collective consciousness for? Like, if I hear you in this moment telling me 2030 or telling us 2030, but I make a change, am I even on that reality anymore? I hope my question is clear, but I just don't understand, because I just watched the video on the parallel timelines, and if there's infinite timelines for us to be on in any given moment, how can there be a collective timeline that everyone creates, or that in 2030 we can have open contact? Like, I don't really understand that. And yeah, and just with myself personally, yeah, I'll leave it at that. Okay, thank you so much, and good day. Bye.
Because you agree to go as a group towards certain reality experiences. You simply navigate with your friends toward them so that you can experience a particular reality even as a group. So just because there are all these probabilities doesn't mean you're not making group choices as well as individual ones.
Connection between those?
There is some. We will not go into detail, but there is also a connection between Anasazi, Anunnaki, and Essassani.
Yes. Okay. All right. So moving on to some current events. Are ETs able to listen in to the current UFO/UAP hearings that we are having here in the US?
Yes.
Do they feel the same happiness and anticipation that we humans feel who believe that aliens are real?
We understand that bit by bit, this is progressing toward the idea of everyone already understanding that we exist.
And in this meeting that was broadcast, the government admitted that they recovered extraterrestrial bodies from crashed UAPs, and nobody even batted an eye. Are we at a comfort level now about the idea of ETs as a nation or planet?
First of all, an individual from a particular program within the government released this information. There are those who simply do not believe the information and therefore are appearing to be comfortable with it, but are still in denial about it. There are those that are more comfortable with it. Yes, the indications of lack of reaction in certain ways can be an indication that you are closer to open contact. All of this is preparation. All of this is about the idea of disclosure, and all of it is preparation for the idea of the high probability of open contact at the end of 26 or the beginning of 27.
Okay, and you've mentioned that Skinwalker Ranch in Utah is a possible location for first open contact.
Yes.
In regards to their research there, can you tell us the origin and or purpose of the 1.6 gigahertz signal that the scientists there frequently encounter?
Yes. This is a communication signal that is also of the correct frequency to open portals. In one particular episode of that particular program, as they broadcast that signal out, they received an echo reflection, which they could not understand where it was coming from. But that is the signal that the portal is open. So when you broadcast it and receive the reflectional echo, you know that you have opened the portal. That's the significance of it, and why that particular frequency is used for space communication as well. It is in alignment with the idea of communication into higher dimensional realms. So, intuitively, your scientists have figured this out, whether they understand it completely or not. But in the demonstration they gave where they broadcast that signal and got the echo reflection from seemingly everywhere and nowhere, that was an indication that they had actually opened the portal. Had someone been in a position to actually walk through the portal at that moment, they would have vanished.
Interesting. We're expecting record heat waves this summer. If the Earth gets too hot, will ETs be used to block, will they use UFOs to block the sun to help keep it cool? Or
No. Climate change is a natural event that you have accelerated with your technology and pollution. This is your choice. You will have to shift to a different Earth where these things may be mitigated. The idea, of course, is that these things go in cycles, and the warming of your oceans, as you're experiencing it now, can actually, paradoxically, bring about a cooling cycle that can begin a different ice age.
So that whole idea that there's some people on the planet who want steps taken to prevent more global warming, while there's others who are opposed to it. Why do we have these kinds of, I guess, issues on our planet?
Because Earth is where all the stories are being told, positive and negative, and the splitting prism will divide into the different versions of Earth that will allow people to continue to experience the consequences of the choices they are making for their own reasons in playing out these stories positively or negatively. Earth, in that sense, is the dividing line, is the dividing space, is the college of many choices. You'll experience the consequence of the choices and the classes you have agreed to take.
Interesting. And would your ships be able to put out wildfires? Or I know you're saying they won't intervene at all, but are the ships capable of doing something like that?
Yes, by surrounding the fire with a force field that cuts off all the oxygen. The fire would then simply extinguish.
And lastly, one person was thinking that spiritual information is illegal. Is this your understanding? Because they're concerned about this kind of information, that somehow it's not okay.
If such is illegal in certain portions of your planet, then we would simply suggest that if a person desires to interact with spiritual information, that they act on their passion to either change the legality in their locale, or they simply move to a place where the idea of spiritual information is not illegal. Simple solutions are available on your planet. But there's no such thing really as the idea of spiritual information being inaccessible to anyone. You can keep it private if you wish. It doesn't have to be displayed publicly. Nevertheless, if certain cultures on your planet deem it to be illegal to contact spirit, then do something about it, or move to where you don't have to do anything about it.
And that pretty much wraps up our questions. Is there anything else that you'd like to share in the few moments that we have remaining?
We will give you what is coming up next, for the next transmission will be all about parallel realities and you. We will describe exactly how your connections to different parallel realities inform and guide the life and the themes you are exploring in this particular time stream. So be prepared to allow your mind to expand interdimensionally by focusing in on the ideas we will share in Parallel Realities and You in our upcoming transmission. Aside from that, allow yourselves to continue with this transmission by becoming relaxed and receive our unconditional love in the sharing that you are about to experience.
Thank you.
Year old, but you still look like you're in your 30s. So I know you appreciate my interest in staying youthful. So there's a book by David Sinclair called Lifespan, where he explains that basically aging is the process of damage to the DNA. So I can walk through a quick example. For example, if a skin cell wants to replicate, it goes and it reads the instructions from the DNA to create a new cell. When the DNA is not damaged, all it finds is one set of instructions for a skin cell. But
Yes.
when we go through life and the DNA is damaged, the wrapping around some of the instructions get loose.
Yes.
And so now a skin cell goes to try to replicate into a new cell, and it finds different sets of instructions, for example,
Yes.
one for liver cell and whatnot.
Yes.
And that leads to defective cells, and therefore that leads to aging organs. So I would love to hear your thoughts about that, and if there is any way for us to prevent damage to the DNA, or even maybe reset it to its original state.
It all begins with energy. It all begins with state of being. It all begins with your belief systems about yourselves. Always start there. The patterns of energy are what determine what's going on within your DNA. And those patterns of energy, positive and negative, are all from the idea of what you have been taught to believe is true about your relationship to yourself, your relationship to others, your relationship to physical reality, all the definitions you hold on to that don't serve you, that are out of alignment with your true vibration. And it begins there. So being out of alignment with your true core frequency causes misalignments within your physical structure and in your DNA. So it all begins there. This is again why we give you the formula. Follow your passion. It keeps you aligned. That's the energy of connection between your physical and higher mind. It allows you to sustain a vibrational state of being that is representative of maturation, but not of denigration, not of disintegration. So it all starts with vibrational alignment, energy alignment within the self, and that translates into physical belief systems, definitions that you hold to be true that are not necessarily in alignment with who you really are.
Got it. Okay, so it's all about state being, but do we need to be concerned about, for example, the collective consciousness and how it affects our DNA?
I would suggest that you be aware of it. You don't have to be concerned by it, but the more awareness you have of what you are making agreements to align with will certainly help guide you in what alignments and agreements you can let go of and which ones are actually beneficial for you.
Okay, got it. So if we actually kind of, I guess, control might not be the right word, but if we control our state of being, then it kind of overrides whatever collective consciousness is doing to our DNA.
Yes, unless you have chosen, and this could be unconsciously, to use the challenge in a particular way for yourself, then generally speaking, yes. As long as you allow yourself, not control, but allow yourself
Got it.
to align with your true core vibration, then yes, you can maintain a relatively youthful experience. Again, you can mature without the idea of denigrating yourself through the process you refer to as aging. However, again, some of this will still be a leftover residual experience from your connections to the collective consciousness and what you believe is possible or probable for you to experience. Now, this does not erase the idea that some people have chosen to experience the idea of aging and the denigration for their own purposes. So you may not necessarily eliminate all of it if people are using that experience to their benefit on a soul level in some way, shape, or form. So don't necessarily assume that it will all go away right away. But you can maintain a more youthful state and an energetic state by following the formula and staying in the present and being true to yourself and aligning harmoniously with your true core frequency.
Got it. Okay, thank you. And so as far as following the formula, I follow my excitement. So I do change a lot. And so I feel like that is part of following my excitement. Sometimes I do wonder whether this constant change is following my excitement versus, maybe avoidance of sun. Yeah.
Well, as long as you constantly wonder that, and as long as you constantly check in with yourself, as long as you are honest with your self-investigation, because I know that if you really think about it, you can tell the difference between excitement and anxiety, if you're honest.
Yep.
So as long as you keep checking, then you will navigate yourself properly. Remember that the people that simply proceed to explore the idea of negativity never actually stop and question whether or not they are going in the correct direction for themselves. So the idea is that your willingness to check in and make sure that you are staying on the path that is true for you will usually mean that you will stay on the path that is true for you. But you will face challenges in doing so, and facing those challenges is part of the point of experiencing your path. So that's okay.
Okay.
As long as you are aware that it could be from avoidance, then you will constantly investigate yourself and you will remain in the center overall.
Got it. Okay. So as long as those challenges, as long as I'm being creative and I'm finding solutions to those challenges and they're not feeling like a struggle, I guess they're there to serve being somewhere.
You don't have to guess. They are.
They are. Yep.
Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. I have another question, if it's okay. So got it. I had a recurring dream as a child, which is basically I used to go to the grocery store in the neighborhood, and I would come back, find our building is completely gone, start crying. This man dressed in white comes and kind of leads me to a pink temple with a long stairway to the sky and the clouds. Was that kind of is there a meaning to that dream, or is that?
It's a gentle reminder. It's a gentle reminder that physical reality is not your home, but you have a home somewhere else in spirit.
I see. So that's more the pink temple is more the spirit world.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you for all your
passion and our pleasure. Good day.
Hi Bashar, my name is Jen and I live in Queensland, Australia in beautiful Sunshine Coast. I have just discovered your transmissions around Christmas time, December period, and they have helped me a lot. So thank you very much for everything that you have brought through for us here and now. During one of the shows that I was watching where you were bringing through a transmission, I was up to the point where there was question and answers, and one of the ladies answered what I felt was a very intense, energetic question. And all of a sudden, before you were about to answer, my power in my house went completely off, just for no reason. My question around this is, was that a pure coincidence, or was there something else happening? And if there was something else happening, is there any connection to me? And yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. Bye.
Yes, there's no such thing in that sense as a coincidence in the sense of an accident. Everything is synchronistic. So when you felt that the question was intense, you allowed your own energy field to become more intense, and that interfered with the electromagnetic field of the electricity systems in your dwelling. So you raised your frequency to the point where you got a physical synchronistic demonstration of how far you had extended your vibrational frequency, how much you had raised it, to the point where it could actually manipulate and interfere with electrical fields in your reality.
Hi, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
It's really nice to speak with you.
You as well.
I wanted to ask you, how does the process of falling asleep work, and how come we never remember the moment when we fall asleep?
Well, some people do, but the process is simply a transition between your focus on the idea of physical reality and your defocusing upon that idea, because you are recharging your physical body by reconnecting more strongly to spirit. So it is a very gentle transition, but it's kind of like having a dial that turns something down incrementally so that you don't necessarily always notice the transition from one state to another, but it's basically a defocusing of your intention on physical reality and now more of a focus on spiritual reality. Because the two are not that far apart, vibrationally speaking, at least at the borderline between the two, it may not always be necessary to notice when you cross, because it requires such a small shift in your vibration to go from physical to non-physical reality focus. And that's usually why people don't notice. Spiritual reality, non-physical reality, is closer vibrationally to physical reality than many of you think.
Okay, I think that answers it. I also wanted to ask you if people have really similar eyes or almost like the same looking eyes, does that can that mean that they are from the same oversoul?
Well, it can be a signal if that's the signal that was agreed to be able to tell. It doesn't have to be, but it can be used that way. Other things can be used that way too. Spirits may agree that they will have a particular mark or something that will remind them that because that is similar to someone else, that there may be a connection there. Because sometimes you need physical reminders of a connection that you have agreed to have that you may not otherwise remember in physical reality. So yes, it can be. It doesn't have to be, but it can be.
So it could theoretically be that one person would notice that connection or that similarity and another person would completely miss it?
Yes.
Okay. Another thing I really wanted to ask you is that you shared locations of some of the portals and the vortices that are in the United States area.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you could share maybe some portals that are in Europe or Eastern Europe particularly.
Well, we have, to some degree, done some of that already, but there are several. Prague is a very strong portal in a lot of ways, a master portal in that area. So you might want to explore that.
What does the portal in Prague represent?
The portal in Prague represents an ability to connect to energies of the past, but in a way that can be adapted to moving into the future in a way that still creates a connection with community.
Okay. That's very interesting.
Yes, all right.
And one last question. It's kind of a personal, I guess. I have sometimes trouble feeling empathy towards some people, and I'm worried that may be a problem. And is there something that I can do to be more empathic?
Well, you say towards some people. Does that mean there are specific reasons why you don't feel empathy towards certain people because of what they do? Or why do you not feel empathy toward those people? Or were you just being general?
It just feels like sometimes I'm able to be empathetic to those same people, and sometimes I'm completely just switches off. Because
of something that they're saying or doing, or just for no reason apparently at all?
Well, it may be that related to my thoughts about them, probably, but...
All right. And what are the thoughts that allow you to experience a shutdown of your empathy? You do understand, yeah. Do you understand that you can have empathy without agreement? You don't have to agree with someone or think of them a certain way to still have empathy.
Okay.
Do you understand that?
I think so. It feels as if I understand it, but in my mind...
All right. Well, can you give us a specific example of the kind of thought you might suddenly have about someone that makes you feel like you can no longer be having empathy for them? Can you give us a specific example?
Yes, well, I have some friends, for example, which I had really good memories with, and then I had really bad ones too. And it's
Yes.
just feels sometimes that I can remember only the good ones or only the bad ones. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. All right. So what you're basically saying is that your empathy shuts down when you are judging others.
Yes. Okay.
Well, then you are judging them.
All right.
So
So
the idea is that in judging them, you are not allowing yourself to feel connected to them. Now, again, you don't have to agree with them. You don't have to connect strongly with the experience that they may be promoting
yes.
in order to understand that you can have compassion and you can have empathy with the understanding that they're going through a challenge. It's not anything you have to take personally. So the idea of shutting down your empathy is that you may be taking some of those things personally rather than simply looking at them objectively and recognizing with compassion that, all right, they're going through some kind of a tough challenge. And I understand that their behavior is exhibiting that. And while I don't agree with aligning with that behavior, it's not what I prefer, I can still empathize that they're going through a challenge because you've gone through challenges in your life as well. And the idea is that you would still want people to understand you're going through those challenges and that you're going to make yourself a better person by facing them in a positive way. So you give them compassion and you send them energy to be able to face their challenges in a positive way that helps them become more aware of who they truly are and helps them grow. So you can have your empathy and your connection to them to that degree without feeling like empathizing with them means you agree with the belief systems that they're exhibiting or the behavior that they're exhibiting. Does that help?
Yes, very much. And to make this a habit, I just keep on, have to consciously keep on practicing that, right?
Well, yes, but again, you have to find the reason why it doesn't make sense to do otherwise.
Okay.
Then it becomes something that you constantly do. You will always respond that way. In a sense, look at it from the perspective of an adult or a parent to a child. If a child makes a mistake, if a child has a tantrum, you understand that you don't reject the child. You know that the child may need some guidance. You know that the child may need some compassion, may need some very loving communication, or just needs to be left alone for a while to figure things out. But you don't remove your love from the child. You don't disconnect from the child. You know that it's simply part of the process of the child's experience in growing up and learning how to be someone who can experience balance in life, who gets a sense of themselves in a stronger, more stabilized way. So you can look at your friends that way, even though they may no longer technically be children. Anyone going into a fear-based reality and a fear-based behavior, in a sense, is still learning to grow. So you can perhaps relate to them as you would to a young child who's still learning their way.
Okay, I will. I want to say try, but I will make that my reality.
That's up to you. All I'm simply saying is find out what the reasons are why you wouldn't do that and realize that in coming up with a reason why you wouldn't allow yourself to still have compassion and empathy for what they're going through, then that's your challenge. And you're exhibiting the same thing that they're going through by holding on to something that kills your empathy and compassion.
Okay, thank you.
They're reflecting that to you.
All right, I will do that.
All right, up to you.
Thank you. I think that is it.
All right. Thank you very much. Good day.
Good day. Thank you.
The year before the window of open contact begins in 2023. Again, starting slowly, but definitely crossing a threshold in more ways than one. But today, we will discuss why you are here in physical reality. We understand many of you have many challenges with physical reality as an experience. And we know that many of you yearn to connect more strongly, or at least feel the connection more strongly that you have with spirit. But the idea is to remember that you chose to have this physical experience for your own purposes, for your own growth, because physical reality being as dense as it is, a densification, a crystallization, as it were, of spiritual energy, a projection of consciousness, not a place unto itself exactly, but going on within your awareness, is for the purpose of exploring and examining things in a different way, a different time frame that allows you the opportunity, as we have said many times, to discover new aspects, new perspectives of yourself. But this idea of choosing to experience physical reality has many benefits that you can take advantage of for your own personal growth as a soul, as a being, as an aspect of all that is, as a reflection of the infinite, by learning to stay within positive frameworks, positive belief systems, positive outlook, positive expression, positive actions, energetically speaking. You can experience many wondrous things by exploring physical reality in that state of being, in that energy, that will allow you to experience the process of change in a way that will enhance your understanding, enhance your ability in the future, not only to grow for yourself, but to aid and assist others and serve others by having these experiences and becoming familiar with all the different kinds of challenges that you can have while experiencing the concept of physical reality. It gives you a repertoire, it gives you a library to aid and assist other beings who may not be as familiar with that experience, so that you can become living examples of how to navigate the idea of physical reality, discover how it can be easier and easier to give yourself the freedom to choose what works for you, the freedom to understand what is truly in alignment with a positive flow of energy, and to be able to impart your experiences to others who, again, may not be quite as familiar with the idea, or who may be facing challenges that they don't have the tools to transform. So it is very important, not only for your present experience, but also for what you call the future of your planet, that more and more of you truly learn to master the so-called limitations that you have created, that you've set up for yourselves, the challenges you've set up for yourselves while experiencing physical reality, to master them and transmit them, that experience, that mastery, to others in your own way, in your own words, to understand the principles upon which you have agreed to play this game with each other, and to what degree you are following the consensus reality, and to what degree you can allow yourself to move in your own individual direction simultaneously, in harmony, with full awareness that you have chosen this experience, and therefore full awareness of how you can use it to positive effect in many different ways. Allowing your imagination, your creativity to come into full play, to apply that creativity to every experience in your physical reality, to truly transform your awareness and your understanding of your relationship to all that is in this way, so that you can allow all that is to experience all that it can be through the idea of new experiences. Even though everything exists, it is the experience, as we have said, in the relationship, the perspectives that are new, because every single one of you is unique, a unique expression of all that is. And this holds true in physical reality as well. Even more so, in a sense, because you can do so many more things in physical reality than you can do in spirit. Now, that may seem like a contradiction, because we know that spirit allows you to experience greater things, different things, broader things, more expansive things, perhaps, than in physical reality. But physical reality has unique things that cannot be experienced in spirit. Your ability to utilize space and time, the framework you have created in which to experience this concept of physical reality in your consciousness, can be played like a musical instrument in many ways, You can create new orchestrations, new understandings, new relationships of space and time within your consciousness that will create beautiful music within all that is, beautiful new perspectives within all that is. This is an art form, physical reality, and you can learn to master it by following the idea of the formula, cosmic compass, as we say, the idea that there are ways in which you can understand how you are agreeing to play by the game of physical reality and play it in your way uniquely, harmoniously, beautifully. Take advantage of this opportunity. It is a gift. No matter how challenging it may seem at times, no matter how dark, no matter how negative it may seem at times, mastering this has everything to do with how you define your relationship to it, how you allow the challenges that come up in your life to be there for a reason, your reason, to really let go of any negative reflection of these ideas and know that even though you may recognize objectively that something may have been created from a negative space, that none of that has anything at all to do with how you will experience the effects of it in your life and become a living example of how to master and transform limitation into freedom, not only for yourself, but for others as well. Many others need these abilities, need to see in all of you that are willing to do so, how such things can be transformed to positive effect. So it's about becoming teachers, living examples, masters of limitation, so that you can shine forth in the physical world and paradoxically start to dissolve the idea of how solid physical reality appears to be. For again, it is nothing more than a projection of your consciousness, though played earnestly and sincerely to the degree where it seems so impenetrable, so solid. Yet now, because of your increased awareness, your expanded awareness of yourselves as spirit, it is becoming less so, more flexible, more malleable, more changeable, more transformable, more magical, more synchronistic in terms of your experience of what physical reality actually is as a mirror of what you believe to be true. So examine your beliefs, choose the ones that work for you, no matter what the scenario, no matter what the circumstance and situation. Use your imagination and creativity to figure out, how could this serve me? How can I learn something from this that can serve others? Always let that be the first question, no matter what crops up. How can this serve me? Use it that way, and you will turn yourself into a master magician and a living example of what others can also choose for themselves by seeing in you the willingness to know that physical reality was your choice, that you're willing to take responsibility for being in physical reality, and you're willing to expand your consciousness to the degree where you can allow physical reality to be your new musical instrument to play a beautiful song, a beautiful orchestration, a beautiful harmony that will invite and induce others to sing along, to play along with you, and allow physical reality to become something that you cherish, that is really truly a part of you in your experience forever and ever, that you are willing to utilize that way. This is why you are in physical reality. This and many other reasons of your own choosing. Use them well, use them wisely, but be present in them. Be present in this physical reality. Do not worry about the past. Do not worry about the future. Physical reality only exists in the present, just like everything. Be in it right now, as fully as you can be, as boldly as you can be, as lovingly as you can be. Be present and act from that presence. We thank you for allowing us to share this idea with you this day, in your new year, your new orbit. And we ask in return, in what way now may we continue to be of service to you? You may begin with your dialogues and questions if you wish.
Well, many people are experiencing anxiety about four main things.
Yes.
First is the fear of their own death. The second is uncertainty about the future and financial uncertainty. The third is fear that things will get even crazier and worse in the world. And fourth, that conspiracy theories about why this is happening are also a fear that comes up for people. So how can we respond to these fears? What should we tell ourselves when these fears come up? What do you suggest?
All right. Well, first and foremost, let us deal with the fourth proposition of what you call the conspiracy theories. The main thing going on with regard to the present situation on your planet has mostly to do, not so much with anything that has been done deliberately, specifically with regard to the virus itself, but with regard to the destruction, as we have said in the monologue, of many of the different ecological systems on your planet. If there is any so-called conspiracy, it is mostly the idea that people on your planet, from fear-based beliefs and from fear of lack, and from the idea of what they believe to be power that is not an expression of power, will conspire to do certain things that have destructive qualities that will eliminate many of the ecological systems on your planet, and have done so, in which these viruses propagate, and by which they are usually contained, at least to a certain degree. But the conspiracies of greed that create the disappearance of certain systems on your planet that these viruses inhabit forces them to go beyond those borders and beyond those barriers in a far greater way than they otherwise would have, seeking out new hosts. The virus is a natural virus. It has, over time, mutated in a variety of ways, but it is not in that sense human-made. So the conspiracy doesn't have to do with the idea of a deliberate release of a man-made virus. It has to do with the idea of the conspiracies that exist in many of your organizations, many of your political and social systems that allow fear of lack and greed to overtake your better nature and cause the destruction of many of the ecosystems on your planet that then allow for the propagation of opportunistic organisms such as this virus to take hold in much broader areas than they otherwise would. This has to do also with the concept of what you call climate change. That is also a side effect of the destruction of certain ecological systems on your planet, on land, in the air, in the sea. And you will find that many of the plants that still remain on your planet are now going to be, in a sense, migrating through seed propagation in different directions than they otherwise normally inhabit. Many of your plants are now moving more northerly and more westerly in order to survive. And the areas in which they were growing will no longer be capable of supporting certain kinds of natural plants or even the foodstuffs that you may choose to grow. This will add to the ability of the virus to propagate itself in broader ranges than it used to. Now, as we also said in the monologue, the idea now that you are isolating yourselves is a perfect positive opportunity to go within, to use this time of self-isolation and social distancing to get in touch with the fear-based beliefs that may exist within your own individual selves, so that you can clean yourselves out of these ideas and pass through the eye of the needle more effortlessly and come out on the other side with an energy that creates more opportunity and more probability to begin to build a new world, a new way of doing things that is more representative of restoring the balance that your planet once had. This may still take some time, and things may still be a little crazy, and may even get a little crazier, but please remember that crazy doesn't have to be experienced in a negative way. there is positive crazy too, or at the very least, opportunities that will present themselves. And even though those opportunities may sometimes be reflective of things you don't prefer, by using this isolation period to go within, strengthen yourselves, balance yourselves, free yourselves of all the fear-based beliefs that you possibly can, you will be far more capable of handling anything that you may see on the other side of the passage through the eye of the needle that you don't prefer. And as we have said many times, you may still see things you don't prefer, people making choices that you don't prefer in your world for quite some time. But the idea, again, is that with the splitting prism idea that you're now fracturing into different parallel realities, it is an important thing for you to do to settle into the understanding that just because you can see people making choices you don't prefer, you're not living in that world. You are observing them through a kind of glass wall, a separation barrier that may allow you to see those choices being made that you don't prefer, but won't necessarily allow you to be affected by those choices if you don't actually make the choice to match those negative frequencies and create the effect within your own reality. These things cannot reach you if you don't make a decision to match or mirror them in the reality that you reside in, that you prefer. The idea, therefore, is even though you may see a great deal of chaos around you, as we said before in the transmission called the eye of the storm, is to remain in the center, in the calm space, which you have given yourselves a better opportunity to do because of your own self-isolation. Treat it as a monastic experience, a meditative experience, an opportunity to take the time to go within and divest yourself of all the things that would, in any way, shape, or form, cause you to want to match the vibrations of things that you don't prefer, so that you can come out the other side of the passage, in a sense, more streamlined, a little bit cleaner, a little bit more stable with your indestructible core, and know that no matter what you see around you, there is nothing to fear, for fear is the thing that will cause you to mirror the vibrations you don't prefer. Stay in your center, stay in that center, the eye of the storm, as you pass through the eye of the needle, and you will find that you will be more capable of accelerating on the other side of this experience in a way that will allow you to experience more synchronicity in a positive way, more effortless of communication between your physical and higher mind, and will put you in a state where you can much, much more willingly and much, much more capably move forward in a way that will allow you to eventually experience the reality that you prefer.
Okay, that's very helpful. This idea of becoming aware of the suffering of others, as you were just mentioning.
Yes.
What is the purpose of that in terms of our own development, to be aware of it? And does that mean that we should take action to respond to it?
Again, action is the language of physical reality. So even in this time of self-isolation, there may be many actions you can take to be a living example of positive choices that other people who may be suffering may also choose to take. Now, it doesn't mean that they all will, but you can at least give them the opportunity by being a living example of making more positive choices and taking actions, whatever actions can be taken, that show them there are other ways to do things. There may be other ways to experience what they're going through. Even though you're isolated, you have this now device that we are communicating with you through, and there are many creative things you can do. You can donate your time, you can donate your abilities, you can donate your money, you can create new ideas, you can create new organizations, you can share new ideas for how to come out the other side of this in ways that can boost people up, let them know that there may be other options other than what they may have considered in their negative states of suffering. But by all means, it's not about ignoring them. By all means, it's using those lessons to improve yourselves, to recognize that they may be doing this to help you realize more clearly what it is you don't prefer to choose. And therefore, you can feed that back and reflect that back to them, what it is you are learning about yourself by experiencing their suffering, and give them the opportunity to know there are other choices, that there is always the idea you call hope, and that they can elevate themselves to a point where their own imaginations can allow them more inspiration and more creativity to bring themselves through this experience in a more positive way. So by all means, self-isolation doesn't mean that you can do nothing, that you have to ignore them, that you have to in any way, shape, or form reinforce their negativity, which would only increase their suffering, but show them the brighter side. Show them the options. Again, it doesn't mean that they have to make those choices, for you always have to let people make the choices they need to make, for you do not know what their path truly is. And what it is they do with the information and options that you share with them is really none of your business. But by all means, take the actions, because as we have said, that is the strongest way to speak and the strongest way to be heard in physical reality. So at least you're giving them the opportunity to know there are other paths that they could be taking.
Okay, well, that's really helpful. And also, you've been talking about the splitting prism and the trains leaving the station.
The trains have left.
Yeah, is this like just the beginning, or is there going to be many more years of this, or will it calm down?
Well, there will be many more years of transformational experience. There won't be many more years of this specific manifestation. And again, those that are willing to shift their vibration more and more by letting go of those negative fear-based beliefs having to do with lack or lack of self-worth or anything like that, will be the ones that can align themselves with a more positive and more accelerated reality that will take them more quickly through the various parallel realities, where they can eventually experience a reality that they prefer by having shifted to it, by making those vibrational changes within themselves. So yes, the transformation will go on for a while, but you'll go beyond the idea of this particular expression of it, but you still have many different consequences of the choices you have made to face, and many different kinds of opportunities to turn them around into a world of more balance. So yes, the transformation is going to go on for a few more years, but there will be different challenges and different opportunities. And if you face them from a more positive place, you will get through them in a more effortless and joyful and creative way. That is guaranteed as long as you match the frequency and have the behaviors that exhibit the kind of behaviors that you would already be doing in the reality you already prefer.
So does that mean that there will come a time when it'll be more difficult to change trains in a sense? And when would that be?
It can be experienced that way, but only if someone is doing that through the idea of fear-based beliefs. Sometimes people may take themselves through greater challenges, but still have the capacity to shift instantly into a more positive reality if facing those greater challenges of negativity was the path they needed to take to give themselves the momentum they needed to go into the positive reality more quickly. So this is not a generalization that may be true for everyone. It may be something that people may find will be experienced in a more difficult way to change farther up the line, but only if they continue on the path of creating more or buying into more negative and fear-based beliefs. Because remember, the fear-based beliefs over time will perhaps make it even not available to you to even realize that you can change. That's one of the side effects of fear-based beliefs, is actually removing the option and the awareness that there is always the opportunity to change. That's what makes it more challenging. It's not in and of itself that it is more challenging to shift, but it is more challenging if you don't know that that's an option.
Yes, I understand.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now, can you talk to us about 5G and the positive and negative aspects of this technology?
The positive aspects are that if it is tuned to the proper frequencies and the proper harmonics, it will aid and assist you in the development of artificial intelligence on your planet in a very specific way. However, if it is not tuned properly, if it is discordant, out of phase with itself, it can have some detrimental effects upon the electromagnetic field, the biomagnetic field of your body, and can cause a diminishment within the immunological systems of your body. So the idea is that it must be tuned properly to the proper harmonics to be actually experienced in a positive way. So it's not that in and of itself, 5G is a negative thing. but it must be done in a positive way with great understanding and great precision in order to actually be experienced in a beneficial way for the creation of positive and beneficial artificial intelligence on your world.
Okay, that's good to know. Another question that's come up has to do with self-worth.
Yeah.
Many people find on their journey that they think they have achieved a certain level of self-valuation.
Yeah.
And then they will find a circumstance comes up that triggers them to devalue themselves or to feel that they have really not accomplished a full recognition of their self-worth.
All right. Well, the first and most paradoxical thing to remember when confronted with issues of lack of self-worth is first and foremost to own it as a choice that you made in experiencing that idea. Because the second you own it, instead of regretting that it's coming up, you are empowered to deal with it, empowered to do something to change it. So it's only the denial of the fact that it comes up, the resistance to the fact that it comes up, that actually makes it stick around and reoccur. Remember that many people, even when they deal with certain issues of self-worth, may test themselves to make sure they have changed. So if you test yourself and trigger yourself by attracting a situation that makes you face the idea that you may not still allow yourself to feel worthy, then you are still reacting the same old way. You're testing yourself to see if you're going to change and respond differently, even if that gets triggered. But the first step toward getting around that is to not deny or resist that it came up, but to acknowledge that you chose it. Because by acknowledging that you chose to experience lack of self-worth, again, that keeps you in the seat of self-empowerment to be able to explore it and do something about changing it. And with enough practice, you will get used to the idea that you no longer need to do that, because you will finally hone the skill of owning whatever comes up instead of resisting whatever comes up. Because remember, as we have said several times, it's not about what you experience in terms of what happens. It's about what you do with that experience that makes the difference in your world. So the first step always is to never deny or resist what happens, but to own it as something that can serve you in a positive way, to know that there's a reason that it's there, and that puts you back in the driver's seat and gives you the self-empowerment and the control to explore it in a more positive, creative, and inspirational way, and to actually have some fun with exploring why you would have chosen to trigger yourself in that way. And then more answers will come up, more ideas will surface, and you'll be on a different journey with that experience at that moment. So owning it and not resisting it is the first step.
Okay, that's very helpful. Another question that's come up is that now that people are becoming more familiar with their frequency, with your frequency,
yes,
they were interested in knowing what your quote unquote phone number is so that they can more easily tune into your frequency.
Well, as we have said, picturing the image in a relaxed meditative state of sorts with the vibration of joy going along with the image of a black background and a black equilateral triangle separated from the black background by a deep blue light behind the triangle, peeking out around the edges of the triangle facing upward, pointing upward in your imagination, will in a sense be the vibrational phone number that will allow you to tap more effortlessly into our collective frequency consciousness. You won't necessarily be literally speaking with me, but you will be tapping into and downloading from that generalized collective frequency a vibration that will infuse your higher mind to make it more effortless for you to receive the information and the answers to your questions that you require by being